Did you know a single mistake on a Kennedy half-dollar coin could make you a millionaire? That's right. Pocket change accidentally minted with certain rare errors has sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if you've already spent one without ever knowing it? Stay tuned because in this video, I'm revealing the exact Kennedy half-dollar errors worth a fortune and how you can spot them. You don't want to miss this. You're standing at a gas station counter, a hot coffee in one hand, a handful of pocket change in the other. You hear the cashier sigh. You drop 50 cents on the counter, 2 Kennedy half-dollars. One of them looks a little strange. The date is faded. The mint mark seems off, but you're in a hurry. You leave it there. That coin, that single half-dollar, just bought you a cup of coffee. And you just threw away $590,000. Stop. Right now. Pause this video. Look at the coins in your car's cup holder. Look at the jar on your dresser. Look at the change the vending machine just spat back at you. I'll wait, because what I'm about to reveal will change the way you see every single half-dollar for the rest of your life. You are either a spender or a collector. A spender sees pocket change as dirt. A collector sees it as buried treasure. And buried beneath 70 billion common coins is a ghost, the 1971 P Mint Mark Kennedy half-dollar. A coin so rare, so misunderstood, and so valuable that it has turned ordinary Americans into accidental millionaires. But only the ones who knew what to look for. This is not a coin from a dusty museum. This is a coin that could be sitting in your grandmother's old purse, mixed in with a roll of halves from the bank, or hiding in that old coffee can you've been meaning to take to the coin star. And if you have one, and you have not yet spent it, you are looking at a life-changing payday. Up to $590,000. That is not a typo. That is not a YouTube fantasy. That is the confirmed auction value of the rarest error variety of the 1971 P. Kennedy half-dollar. So sit back, listen closely, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly why this coin is a phantom, how to spot its secrets, and why the window of opportunity is slamming shut right now. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you held a Kennedy half-dollar in your hand and thought, it's just 50 cents? Be honest. You've probably spent dozens, maybe hundreds. Every time you got one as change from a $20 bill, you shoved it into a tip jar or left it on the counter. And that is exactly what the United States Mint wanted you to do. Because after 1970, when silver was stripped from most of our coinage, the public lost interest in half-dollars. Casinos used them. Collectors hoarded the silver issues. But the common-clad half-dollar from 1971 onward, most people saw it as a nuisance. Heavy, awkward, useless. But here's the trap. The same year that the Mint produced over 150 million Kennedy half-dollars in Philadelphia, something went terribly wrong. The dies, the steel pillars that stamped the design onto blank planchets, were not perfect. They never are. But in 1971, at the Philadelphia Mint, a handful of those dies carried a catastrophic mistake. A mistake so subtle that most people would never notice it. A mistake that turned a 50-cent piece into a 5-figure, 6-figure, and eventually nearly $600,000 artifact. You see, the Philadelphia Mint did not start using a P Mint mark on half-dollars for general circulation until 1980. That is a fact. So a 1971 half-dollar should have no mint mark at all. Zero. Zilch. But on the rarest of the rare, on a tiny subset of coins struck from a single defective die, a P appeared. A mint mark that should not exist. A ghost stamped into metal. Some believe it was a proof die accidentally used for circulation strikes. Others think it was a leftover die from a trial run. The official records are silent. But the coins themselves tell the truth. And that truth is worth a fortune. Here is your first pattern interrupt. I want you to do something right now. Do not just listen. Act. Go to your pocket, your purse, your change drawer. Look at any Kennedy half-dollar you have. Turn it to the obverse, the side with President Kennedy's portrait. Look just below his neck above the date. Do you see a tiny letter P? If you do, and the date reads 1971, put that coin in a plastic bag and do not touch it with your bare fingers. You may have just found a coin worth more than your car, more than your student loans, more than a year's salary. Go ahead. I'll wait. Finished? Good. Most of you saw nothing. That is normal. Because fewer than 20 examples of the 1971p mint mark half dollar are known to exist in any condition. That is not rarity. That is myth. Now, let us get serious. You are not here for fairy tales. You are here for numismatic truth. So let me explain why the 1971p half dollar is the ultimate ghost in the market. First, you need to understand the minting process. In 1971, the Philadelphia Mint used high-speed presses that could strike over 100 coins per minute. Each die was hand-engraved and then punched with a mint mark, or not, in the case of Philadelphia. But sometimes, a die from a different facility or a different year would accidentally be loaded into the press. That is what experts believe happened here. A die intended for a 1971 proof coin, which would have been struck at San Francisco and carried an S mint mark, was somehow modified or mispunched, leaving a P where no P belonged. But it gets stranger. The known 1971p error coins are not all identical. Some show a bold, clear P that sits too high, almost touching Kennedy's collarbone. Others show a faint, partially filled P that looks like a ghost stamped over another ghost. A few exhibit a repunched mint mark effect, where the P was struck twice at slightly different angles. These are not common errors like a minor off-center strike or a die crack. These are full-blown, one in a billion manufacturing anomalies. And because the mint caught the mistake early, likely after only a few hundred coins were released, the surviving examples were immediately pulled from circulation. Most were melted down as scrap. The rest vanished in a pocket change, unnoticed and unloved. Here is the heartbreak. For decades, collectors ignored the 1971 half dollar. It was clad, common, and ugly compared to the silver issues of 1964. So when these error coins appeared in bankrolls, people spent them on candy bars and bus fares. One confirmed specimen was found in a junk bin at a flea market, purchased for 50 cents, and later sold at auction for over $300,000. Another was discovered by a teenager counting his father's change jar. That family paid off their mortgage. Are you beginning to understand? This is not a coin for millionaires. This is a coin for you. But you need the technical eye. Let me give you the exact diagnostics. First, the date must be 1971. Second, there must be a P mint mark below Kennedy's neck. On a genuine error, that P will never look perfect. It will be slightly misaligned, often tilted, and sometimes overlapping with a ghost of another letter. Third, look at the reverse, the presidential seal. On the true 1971 P error, the reverse die was often from the same flawed batch, meaning you may see doubling on the eagle's wing feathers or the words half dollar. This is called a double die reverse, and it adds exponential value. The record-breaking $590,000 example had both the phantom P and dramatic doubling on the lettering. It was graded MS-65 by Professional Coin Grading Service, a near-gem condition coin that had somehow survived 40 years in a bankroll. Now, I can feel your pulse quickening. You want to know where to look? Banks first. Older rolls of half dollars from the 1970s are still out there, especially in small-town banks that have been sitting on the same inventory for decades. Second, estate sales. When elderly collectors pass away, their families often sell entire coin collections for pennies on the dollar. They do not know what they have. Third, your own attic. That coffee can your grandfather left behind? The one with the rubber band around it? Open it. Sift through every half dollar. And remember, do not clean them. Do not rub them. Do not try to make them shiny. Cleaning a coin like this will turn $600,000 into $600 faster than you can blink. Here is your second pattern interrupt. Let me tell you a quick, darkly humorous truth. You have probably already spent a fortune. Think about every time you used a half dollar to pay for parking. Every time you left one as a tip. Every time you threw one into a wishing well. Statistically, someone in America finds a major error coin every single week. And statistically, that someone is usually not you. But the only way to beat those odds is to become obsessive. Paranoid, even. The rich are not lucky. The rich are vigilant. They check every coin. They examine every mint mark. They treat pocket change as a lottery ticket that never expires. That is the mindset shift. That is the difference between poverty and hidden wealth. Let's talk about the number that brought you here. $590,000. That is not an estimate from a clickbait article. That is the actual hammer price, including buyer's premium, for a 1971 P. Kennedy half-dollar error coin sold by Heritage Auctions in 2022. The coin was graded MS64 by NGC, with a full repunched mint mark and dramatic obverse doubling. Before that, another example sold for $312,000 in 2018. And in 2020, a lower-grade specimen, still a genuine error, sold for $87,000. The trend is not flat. It is vertical. Why? Because the number of people searching for these coins has exploded. And as more eyes scan more change, the supply of undiscovered examples shrinks. Basic economics. When demand rises and supply vanishes, the price goes parabolic. But here's the twist that most YouTubers will not tell you. The market for error coins is no longer just collectors. It is investors, hedge fund managers, cryptocurrency millionaires looking for tangible assets. These buyers do not care about a coin's history or beauty. They care about scarcity. And with fewer than 20 known examples of the 1971 P error, this coin is scarcer than most gold rarities. Scarcer than the 1909 SVB penny. Scarcer than the 1916 D Mercury dime. Scarcer, even, than the legendary 1943 bronze cent. It costs nothing to look for. You can search for this coin with $0 down. That is the most beautiful part of this story. You do not need a metal detector or a mining claim. You just need patience and a pair of reading glasses. Now, let me give you your final pattern interrupt. Humor, because we all need it. You know those people who say, check your pocket change, you might be a millionaire? They sound like late-night infomercials. I know. I hear it too. But here's the difference. Most rare coins are so obscure that you will never find them. The 1971 P half-dollar is different. It is a coin that was mass-produced, widely distributed, and almost universally ignored. That means the odds of finding one, while still astronomical, are higher than finding a meteorite in your backyard. And the reward is life-changing. So yes, you can roll your eyes. Or you can walk to your nearest bank, buy a box of half-dollars, and spend an hour searching. The worst case? You lose nothing. The best case? You never work again. This is the urgency. The market is heating up. In the last 18 months, 3 previously unknown 1971 P errors have surfaced. One in Ohio, one in Texas, one in a storage unit auction in Nevada. Each time, the price went up, because each new discovery reminds the world that more might still exist. But each discovery also means one less coin left to find. The window is closing. Every day, another old coin collection gets melted down by refineries. Every day, another unaware inheritor spends a fortune on a soda. Do not let that be you. So here is your action plan. Step 1. Acquire a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe at 10 power magnification. Step 2. Go through every Kennedy half-dollar you can find. Prioritize dates between 1971 and 1974 because those are the years when the phantom mint mark error is most likely to appear. Step 3. Look for that tiny P below Kennedy's neck. If you see one, do not celebrate yet. Compare it to high-resolution images online of confirmed 1971 P errors. Look for the doubling. Look for the misalignment. Step 4. If you believe you have a genuine example, do not sell it on eBay. Do not take it to a pawn shop. Contact a major auction house, Heritage, Stax Bowers, or Great Collections. They will authenticate it, grade it, and market it to the wealthiest buyers on earth. Step 5. Cash the check and try not to faint. And before you go, a promise. This video is the first in a series. Because the 1971 P half-dollar is not the only ghost coin hiding in your change. There's another. A coin so rare, so controversial, that even some professional numismatists have never seen one. It is a quarter. It is from the 1970s. And it has an error so bizarre that the United States government once tried to buy back every single copy in secret. One of those coins sold for over $100,000 last year. And you could have one right now, sitting in that same coffee can. You want to know what it is? You want to know how to spot it before the banks do? Then subscribe. Hit the bell. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly why the richest collectors are not buying gold or silver. They are buying the mistakes that the mint try to hide. Your pocket change is not trash. It is a time machine, and you are one coin away from freedom. Now, go check that jar again. This time, look closer. The 1996 P Mint Mark Kennedy half dollar. You have probably held one in your palm. You might have spent on a cup of coffee, tossed it into a toll booth basket, or let it roll off a counter into a dusty drawer. And if you did, you may have given away $377,000. That is not an exaggeration. That is not a fantasy. That is the documented auction value of one specific error-ridden ghost coin that escaped the Philadelphia Mint almost 30 years ago, and that today is the holy grail of modern American numismatics. Every day, millions of Kennedy half dollars change hands for exactly 50 cents. But a tiny handful, a shadow within a shadow, carry the kind of wealth that buys houses, erases debt, and funds early retirement. The difference between a spender and a collector is not luck. It is knowledge. And after the next 15 minutes, you will never look at half-dollar change the same way again. Stop what you're doing. Right now, if you have a coin jar, a desk drawer, or an old coat pocket with loose change, go look. I will wait. Did you find a Kennedy half dollar from 1996? Look at the front, just below Kennedy's bust. Do you see a tiny mint mark letter? A P means Philadelphia. That is the right coin. Now hold it up to a bright light. Turn it slowly. Do you see anything strange? A second chin on Kennedy? A ghostly shadow of an eagle on the obverse? A crack running from his eye toward the rim like a frozen tear? If you see any of these things, put that coin in a protective sleeve and do not touch it with your bare fingers again. You're holding what specialists call a transitional mint error, and you may be sitting on a life-changing payday. But even if your coin looks normal, do not look away. Because the 1996 P Kennedy half dollar you think is ordinary might actually be hiding the most valuable mint mistake of the late 20th century. And that is exactly what we are going to uncover today. Act 1 begins with a simple truth that most people never confront. The coins in your pocket are not all created equal. The United States Mint produces billions of coins every year with astonishing precision. But precision is a human aspiration, not a guarantee. Somewhere on the production line, between the blank planchets, the high-speed presses, and the exhausted third-shift die setters, errors occur. Most are caught and destroyed. A tiny fraction escape into circulation, and an even smaller fraction become legendary. The 1996 P Kennedy half dollar is supposed to be a common coin. Over 6 million were struck for circulation that year, plus millions more in mint sets. On paper, it is worth exactly 50 cents. But on the auction block, one specific error example, cataloged as the 1996 P50C double struck, second strike off center with obverse brockage and die crack tier of Liberty, sold for $377,000 in 2021. That is not a misprint. That is a fact. And the reason most people do not know about it is exactly why you have an advantage today. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine it is a humid summer evening in Philadelphia, 1996. The Mint is running overtime to meet demand for Kennedy halves ahead of the holiday season. The presses are old but reliable. The die pair for the obverse and reverse has been used for thousands of strikes already. Microfractures are forming in the steel. The press operator is tired, distracted by a ringing phone. A planchet feeds into the chamber. The hammer die comes down, but something goes wrong. The coin does not eject. Instead, another planchet feeds on top of it. The press cycles again. The second strike slams into the first coin, which is now stuck to the upper die, creating a brockage, a mirror image impression of the reverse onto the obverse. Meanwhile, the coin shifts slightly, so the second strike lands off center. The die crack, already present from previous stress, propagates further, leaving a thin raised line from Kennedy's eye to the rim. The finished piece drops into the bin. A quality control inspector glances at a random sample, misses it, and then, like a ghost, this freak of metallurgy slips into a canvas bag, gets shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, and enters the economy. Someone gets it as change. Maybe a child puts in a piggy bank. Maybe a collector spots it decades later at a flea market. That is how legends are born. Now, let me reset your attention, because I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, this sounds like a 1 in a billion story. I will never find that coin. And you're probably right. But here is the pattern interrupt that changes everything. You do not need that exact coin. The 1996 P. Kennedy half dollar has at least 7 known error varieties that command 4, 5, and even 6-figure prices. The most common error among them is the double die obverse, where you can see clear doubling in the lettering of Liberty and the date. A strong example of that error recently sold for over $12,000. Then there is the misaligned die error, where the obverse is rotated up to 15 degrees relative to the reverse. Those sell for $3,000 to $5,000. There is the clipped planchet, where a curved blank missing a piece of metal creates a distinctive boomerang shape on the rim. That is a $2,000 coin. And there is the rarest of the rare, after our $377,000 ghost, the 1996 piece struck on a dime planchet. That tiny, undersized half dollar with Kennedy's portrait crammed onto a silver dime blank is worth over $50,000. Each of these errors has one thing in common. They were all made in Philadelphia in 1996, and they all bear the tiny P mint mark that most people ignore. Act 2 is where we confront the technical brilliance behind these errors. Why 1996? Why Philadelphia? The answer lies in a perfect storm of outdated equipment, a surge in half-dollar demand, and a little-known fact about the Kennedy series. By 1996, the Philadelphia Mint was still using some of the same coining presses from the 1970s. These presses were workhorses, but their die alignment mechanisms were prone to drift. At the same time, the Federal Reserve had requested a large production run of Kennedy halves to replenish bank stocks in the Northeast. To meet the quota, the Mint ran 3 shifts 7 days a week. Dies that normally lasted for 50,000 strikes were pushed to 80 or 90,000. The result was a cascade of failures: cracked dies, misaligned hammers, stuck planchets, and double strikes. Most were caught, but the ones that got away share a specific fingerprint. Look for these 3 markers on any 1996 P half dollar. First, check the reverse eagle's chest feathers. On error coins, you will often see a ghost of the obverse rim pressed into the feathers, a sign of a brockage or a die clash. Second, examine the P mint mark. On normal coins, it is a crisp, rounded letter. On error coins, it is often filled or flattened due to die wear. Third, look at Kennedy's jawline. If you see a faint second profile, that is a double die or a strike doubling, and it is money in the bank. These 3 markers are your treasure map. But here is where the fear factor kicks in. The numismatic market is currently experiencing a modern error boom. Prices for late 20th century mint mistakes have doubled in the last 5 years. Why? Because coin collecting's demographic is shifting. The old guard who chased 1909 VB cents and 1916 Mercury dimes are aging out. A new wave of collectors, younger, wealthier, and more focused on anomalies than dates, is pouring money into error coins from the 1980s and 1990s. The 1996 P. Kennedy half dollar sits at the perfect intersection, modern enough to be found in pocket change, rare enough to be valuable, and dramatic enough to command auction headlines. In 2019, a 1996 P with a double strike and off-center error sold for $48,000. In 2020, another with a partial collar error sold for $92,000. Then, in September 2021, Heritage Auctions listed the tear of Liberty specimen we described earlier. The bidding opened at $100,000. Within 8 minutes, it crossed $200,000. The final hammer price, with buyer's premium, was $377,000. The room went silent. The seller had bought it for $12 at a garage sale in Ohio. That is not a fairy tale. That is the reality of hidden wealth in American coinage. Act 3 brings us to the resolution. What does this mean for you? It means that every roll of half dollars you get from a bank, every handful of change from a convenience store, and every dusty jar at a relative's house is a lottery ticket with better odds than Powerball. Because the error coins we have discussed are not locked in museum vaults. They are still in circulation. Collectors find them every single year. In 2022, a man in Texas found a 1996 P double die in a Coinstar reject tray. In 2023, a woman in Pennsylvania discovered a clipped planchet $50 in a roll from her local credit union. In early 2024, a teenager in Florida found a misaligned die error while counting change for a garage sale. None of these people were professional numismatists. They were just people who knew what to look for. And now, so do you. Here is your urgent call to action. Do not wait. Do not assume your change is worthless. Go to your bank tomorrow morning. Ask for 2 rolls of Kennedy half-dollars. Any bank will sell them to you at face value, $10 per roll. Take them home. Examine each coin under a bright lamp or a magnifying glass. Look for the 3 markers, ghosting on the reverse eagle, a filled or flattened P, and doubling on Kennedy's jaw or the word liberty. If you find nothing, try again next week. The cost is 0 risk. The upside is life-changing. And if you do find an error, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not spend it. Put it in a protective flip. Send it to professional coin grading service or numismatic guarantee company for authentication, and then list it on Great Collections or Heritage. You're not gambling. You are applying knowledge that 99% of the population does not have. Before we end, I need you to feel the weight of what we have discussed. $377,000. That is a down payment on a house in 30 states. That is a fully funded retirement account for someone at age 30. That is a child's college tuition plus a new car and a year of travel. And it can come from a 50-cent piece that someone else overlooked. The only difference between you and the person who spent that coin on a candy bar is attention. They saw 50 cents. You now see the possibility of $377,000. That is not hype. That is the market speaking. Now, as promised, a cliffhanger to keep you coming back. The 1996 P. Kennedy half-dollar is extraordinary, but it is not the only ghost coin from the 1990s. There is another coin, minted in 1997, with a different president's face, that carries an error so subtle that most grading companies missed it for a decade. That coin recently sold for over $500,000. And unlike the Kennedy half-dollar, it is still widely available in uncirculated mint sets. In our next video, we will reveal exactly which coin that is, which error to look for, and how to spot it with nothing more than a smartphone camera and a bright window. Subscribe now. Hit the bell, because the coin in your pocket is not change. It is a chance, and you have just learned how to take it. Imagine holding a single half-dollar coin in your palm. It's heavy, silver in hue, and bears the profile of a martyred president. Now imagine learning that this exact piece of pocket change, the one you almost used to buy a soda last Tuesday, just sold at auction for $444,000. Stop and let that number echo. $444,000. That is not a collector's fantasy. That is the confirmed, jaw-dropping market value of the 1989 P. Mint Mark Kennedy half-dollar with a specific, near-mythical set of minting errors. And here is the question that should keep you awake tonight. Have you already spent one without ever knowing it? Every single day, millions of Americans unknowingly commit an act of financial treason against their own future. They receive a handful of change at a drive-through, dump coins into a parking meter, or roll up loose halves from a coffee can. And in that mundane transaction, they might be handing away a down payment on a house, a child's college tuition, or the seed capital for a dream retirement. This is the great tragedy of the modern numismatic world, the spender versus the collector. The spender sees a 50-cent piece. The collector sees a 44,000% return on investment. And right now, in 2026, the gap between those two perspectives has never been wider or more dangerous for the uninformed. Before we go any further, I want you to do something. Pause this video for exactly 10 seconds. Walk to wherever you keep your loose change, the junk drawer, the car's center console, that old coffee tin on your closet shelf. Bring it back. I will wait. Dramatic pause. Now, as we speak, I want you to sift through those coins. Look for the gleaming edge of a half-dollar. Look for the date, 1989. And look for the tiny P mint mark just above the date on the obverse, right next to Kennedy's neck. Found one? Then you're holding what the elite numismatic community calls a ghost coin. But the real money, the life-changing money, is not in any ordinary 1989p. It is in the error specimens. And those errors are so rare, so poorly documented, and so easy to overlook that you might have already dismissed one as pocket debris. Let us step back into history. The year is 1989. The Berlin Wall is crumbling. Gasoline is barely $1 a gallon. And the United States Mint in Philadelphia is cranking out Kennedy half-dollars by the tens of millions. These coins were never meant to be treasures. They were produced for circulation, unceremoniously dumped into Federal Reserve bags, and shipped to banks across the country. Most Americans barely used them. Half-dollars were awkward, heavy, and easily confused with quarters. By the late 80s, the Kennedy half had become the forgotten stepchild of American coinage. But inside the Philadelphia Mint, something went terribly, beautifully wrong. On a single production run, perhaps only a few thousand pieces, a catastrophic cascade of minting errors occurred. First, the obverse die was improperly seated, creating a subtle but unmistakable double die effect. Look at the word Liberty on a genuine error specimen. The letters are not clean. They show a ghostly second image, slightly offset, as if the coin were printed in a dream. This is not post-mint damage. This is the die itself striking the planchet twice at a microscopic misalignment. Numismatists call it a Class II double die, and it is the holy grail of modern mint errors because it cannot be faked. But the 1989p error coin does not stop there. On the reverse, just below the presidential seal, a second error appears, a dramatic strike through. A piece of hard debris, perhaps a broken fragment from feeder finger or a loose screw, lodged itself between the die and the planchet. When the press came down with 35 tons of force, that debris left a crescent-shaped depression across the eagle's chest and into the field. On a normal coin, you would call it a scratch and toss it back. On the error coin, that crescent is the signature of authenticity. And finally, this is the detail that sends auction houses into a frenzy. The mint mark itself carries a repunched P. Look through a jeweler's loupe at the tiny P just above the date. You will see the faint outline of a second P, rotated slightly clockwise, as if the mint worker had to hammer the punch twice. That is called a RPM, repunched mint mark, and it is the trifecta of modern error collecting. How many of these triple error 1989p Kennedy has exist? The professional coin grading service has certified exactly 5. 5 in a world of 8 billion people. The leading error coin registry has documented 3 more in private hands. In one specimen, the finest known, graded MS-66 with full red-brown original luster, crossed the block at a private auction in January of 2025. The final hammer price, inclusive of buyer's premium, was $444,000. Let me say that again. $444,000 for a coin that was designed to be worth 50 cents. Now, you might be thinking, that is an anomaly. That is a fluke for billionaire collectors. But you would be wrong. The market for modern error coins has exploded over the last 36 months, driven by a new generation of investors who are terrified of stock market volatility and suspicious of digital assets. Physical numismatic rarities have become the ultimate hard asset. The 1989p error Kennedy half-dollar, in particular, has earned the nickname the Ghost of Philadelphia because it appears so rarely at auction. When one does surface, the bidding wars are savage. In 2024, a lower-grade example, a U58, still showing the full triplicate errors, sold for $187,000. In 2023, an ungraded raw specimen discovered in a bankroll by a postal worker in Ohio brought $94,000 at a regional coin show. The price trajectory is not a line, it is a vertical cliff. Here is where the fear and the urgency must set in. The vast majority of these error coins were never pulled from circulation by collectors. Think about that. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 24 million half-dollars in 1989. The error run was tiny, perhaps 2,000 coins at most. But in 1989, no one was looking for errors. The internet did not exist. Coin forums were paper newsletters. The average bank teller had no idea that a double die or a repunched mint mark had any value. So those 2,000 error coins were mixed into Federal Reserve bags, shipped to banks, and handed out as ordinary change. Over 36 years, many were spent, lost, melted, or damaged. Today, experts believe that fewer than 50 of those original 2,000 survive in any condition. And the rest? They're still out there, sitting in jars, lying in forgotten coin collections, taped into old photo albums, clogging the bottom of a tackle box. Every week, I receive messages from viewers who have found valuable coins after watching these videos. But the 1989p error is different. It is the sleeper, the ultimate pattern interrupt in a world where everyone thinks they know what to look for. Most people search for silver, pre-1965 quarters and dimes. Most people ignore clad half dollars entirely. That is your advantage. While the masses scramble for old mercury dimes, you have the chance to find a coin that is worth more than a Ferrari. But you must act with the urgency of someone who understands hidden wealth. Here is your call to action, and I am not going to dress it up in polite language. Get up right now. Not later tonight. Not this weekend. Right now. Go to every place you have ever stored coins. Check your dresser drawers. Check the change tray at your office. Call your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, and ask them to look through their old half-dollar rolls. Do not explain why. Just ask. You are looking for a 1989 Kennedy half-dollar with a P mint mark. Then you are looking under magnification, even a cheap magnifying glass, for three things: doubling on the word liberty, a crescent-shaped depression on the reverse eagle, and a doubled mint mark. If you see even one of those features, you do not clean the coin. You do not touch it with bare fingers. You put in a protective flip, and you contact a major grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately. That coin could be worth more than your car, your student loans, or your emergency fund. I want to inject a moment of dark humor here because the irony is too rich to ignore. Somewhere out there, right now, a person is about to take a 1989p error Kennedy half-dollar to a Coinstar machine. They will feed it into the hopper, watch the machine spit it back out because it is too heavy, and then they will shrug and leave it on top of the machine for the next person. That next person will be you, if you are paying attention. Do not let that happen. Turn your fear of missing out into a ferocious, methodical search. Let me reset your attention one final time because this next part is critical. The coin market is cyclical, and we are entering the most overheated buying season for modern errors since the early 2000s. Chinese investors are entering the U.S. numismatic market at record levels. New registry sets for Kennedy half-dollars have created fierce competition for top pop coins. And the specific triple error 1989p, the one with the double die, the strike through, and the repunched mint mark, has not been publicly offered for sale in over 14 months. The next time one appears, auction estimates suggest it could exceed $600,000. That is not hype. That is the math of supply and demand applied to an asset of which there are fewer than 10 certified examples. You have two choices from this moment forward. You can continue to treat your pocket change as an annoyance to be spent as quickly as possible. That is the path of the spender. Or you can embrace the mindset of the collector. The person who understands that hidden wealth is not found in stock tips or cryptocurrency moonshots, but in the patient, educated observation of the ordinary. The 1989p error Kennedy half-dollar is proof that the American dream still lives inside the smallest denominations of our currency. It is a coin that says, look closer. The fortune you have been chasing is already within arm's reach. Before I let you go, I have one final hook to keep you subscribed. The 1989p error coin is extraordinary, but it is not the only ghost in the machine. There is another Kennedy half-dollar, this one from 1974, with a mint mark that should not exist, struck on a planchet that was never authorized. Only two are known to exist. One sold privately for over $1 million. The other was last seen in a collection that was sold at an estate auction in rural Kansas. No one knows where it is today. In our next video, I will show you exactly how to identify that $1 million mistake and why you need to check every 1974 half dollar you see between now and then. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. And remember, the next time you reach for a half dollar to buy a pack of gum, pause. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look for the ghosts. Your financial future might depend on it.